Change names every time, man. I keep forgetting to put me anyway. I've been called way worse than those. I'll get one of those printout things. Well, like she uses for these folders. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. There's a basket. Oh.
One time down here, like in our found down there next to us.
Oh, are we streaming yet? We are.
Just the inside info right there.
Are we waiting on the speaker or we can get started?
No, we're ready to start.
Okay.
Good afternoon, I guess. Thanks for getting together. I know that did a lot of work last week moving forward. Negotiations kind of ended abruptly, but I think we're in a position to hear from the Senate on the counter to our counter. Is that where we're at today, or how do we want to start?
Yeah, thank you. What it was maybe received as an ultimatum on the whole sheet. I want to clarify that what we're trying to do is get a commitment. I've asked the speaker in private several times if he has an agreement to not override any bills because of how it impacts potentially the general appropriations bill and any agreements that we may arrive at here. It's always been custom that he and I have talked about, sometimes amongst the whole budget team and sometimes just he and I, that obviously if we're going to have a budget agreement, we want to carry that through to the best extent possible. I know Speaker Pro Tem Hilbert asked last week, is that actually deliver or attempt? Obviously, I was trying to get a deliver, but in the past, one or two of the chambers sometimes has not been able to deliver on every override, ourselves included, on something even as late as last year. However, we've always entered into the budget agreement with not one hand behind the back with fingers crossed, hoping that the governor vetoes one portion that the House wants to do. I want to be very public and clear that in 2022, the governor actually asked me when he and I were trying to push the school choice and Janus and JNC, and we enjoyed a relationship much more akin to what the relationship that you all have with him currently. He brought me down here and asked me which line items that I wanted him to veto from the House position. And I told him I wasn't at liberty to do that because we had shaken hands on a budget. And so I think if you go back and look at the clips from around 2020, 2021, 2022, and even as late as last year, we've tried as both the House and Senate to carry our commitments through to their conclusion. Sometimes the conclusion is we can't pass it in one chamber or the other, but we've tried. And so what we don't want to be in a position where the governor vetoes, especially the general appropriations and or line items, general appropriations, and that I'm not representing the membership of the Senate to my fullest extent of trying to get their priorities done. So I wanted to be clear on that. We can go through the particulars of our counter to your counter. So I guess it's like counter to the second degree or something like that. We can go through those particulars, but we can't come to any agreement on the LCF projects because we're coming, I think we went 154 million or something to your side. I know there was some disagreement on how the math worked out. I've since found out there was a disagreement on how the interest is counted. So that's cleared up to me. We can talk through that. But we can finish at Thursday night where we had we made huge progress on Wednesday and Thursday in particular. If we just want to cut off there and say that's the budget for this year, we're fine with that. Obviously, there are some priorities that both of us have to try to get done, either through cash or LCF or a combination thereof. but that's where I was coming from, on that. Want to clarify that so you all understand the position I was taking. I still need some assurance that we will try to carry this through to its natural conclusion of actually being effective law if the governor vetoes it.
Well, I'll say myself and the House has always come to the table and negotiated in good faith. I believe when we say we have a deal, we have a deal. I was sure hoping that we could have got there last Friday and then we'd had plenty of time to have the 5 days that we need. I'm not going to speak for the speaker, but I've heard him say multiple times, including to the media, that he has had no such agreement of not taking up veto overrides with the governor. I'm going to just leave that at that point. I can tell you that I'm here to negotiate on behalf of the House of Representatives to get a governor agree to a budget that's good for the entire state. I can't speak for the governor at this point. I mean, I was asked earlier if we would reach out to the governor. I'm putting that into play right now through staff to try to get an agreement that the governor would say certain things are done, then he wouldn't veto the budget. Really, but I'm here today on behalf of the House to negotiate from good faith. And like I said, every time I've ever cut a deal, I believe we have a deal. I don't like backing up. I don't like retrading deals. So I guess to take you at face for what you said, I'd need to know exactly where we were at on Thursday. I negotiated good faith all day on Friday, along with the speaker, yourself and your team as well. I felt that we were really, really close, and the House's counter to your original offer was a document that was going to make it very easy to say, yes, if we got a budget deal, then we moved on out. I mean, that's truly where I was at. I thought we were very, very close. And then this thing's progressed, not to rehash it because I don't think we're going to get any positive out of that, but I was very sincere in my question, is that a typo? Because I believe we'd shorted the fund with the projects left in it. I really wanted to go over the budget so I fully understood the position of the Senate, how you calculate the numbers, where these positions are truly at. And we were very, very close, I felt. But if we want to go back to Thursday, that's fine. I just need to have the breakdown of where we're at the end of Thursday. And I'm sure between the staff, House and Senate, they can tell us where we were at the end of the day on Thursday. But I'm open, I'm here in good faith. Negotiation on behalf of the House to get a FY25 budget.
Yeah, I think we could easily come to where we're at, and we can talk about those things, but we really need to know if we're going to carry these through to their natural conclusion of attempting to get these enacted, the governor's signature notwithstanding, which we've experienced several times, either through a veto or through, if he just lets it become law absent his signature, that's one thing. But if he actually vetoes or line items, any of these things, that's a whole nother situation. And if his public and comments here in the budget summit are accurate, he has stated that he's at least not going to sign it at a bare minimum.
So this keeps coming up. My question would be, and maybe this has happened, and I know you did ask at this table if the governor would sign it, and he said he hadn't seen it. Of course, we didn't have it as close to a final product at the time, but I'm curious now that we are at the point that we have both sides negotiating in good faith until Friday, 2 o'clock or whenever it was. The House is not the entity with the veto pen, the governor is. So has the question been asked to the executive of what would it take to get you to commit to signing the budget in totality? Because I feel like that's who the question should be directed towards, not the House of Representatives.
Well, I understand and respect that position. I've been in the budget negotiating room for 8 years now, as the vice chair of appropriations through my full year time, and then as the pro tem. And every year, typically initiated by your chair or your speaker, there's been a request of whether or not we would override vetoes, because we've been in contentious positions. This is not a new arena for us on this. So we've always had that conversation. It hasn't been in the public. It's always been in these meetings we've had toward the end trying to shore things up. And so it's not an outlandish question to have assurance that we're going to try to see this through all the way to its conclusion. So I understand, yes, I've not got a satisfactory answer out of either the governor or the speaker on whether or not one will sign it or one will override. That's where the concern comes from.
So I guess the second point on that is the timing of it. At least in regular session, we had a timeline to get a deal. While we did not have an agreed upon timeline, we all knew the timeline is the timeline. Chairman Wallace is known for this, as Chairman Hall can attest. Every year, the first time the Senate and House gets together in budget negotiations, and officially, I guess, in February or March, Wallace always pulls out a timeline sheet of where we're at. And the timeline, we really needed to deal Friday in order to have the opportunity for veto overrides. And so I guess that's the challenge, that if veto overrides are so important, why were we told we'll see you on Monday, on Friday, when we were still there negotiating?
Because I couldn't get a commitment to do overrides. And so we were shifting $154 million when you count the DPS phase 2 and the OSU science lab, OSU Medical Authority Science Lab, combine that with the DPS phase 2. We shifted our position 154 million to your position. But in order to make sure that we were actually all operating, I'm not trying to insinuate you weren't operating in good faith, but so we could all see our priorities get to the finish line, that was the request. I knew that we needed to get a deal by midnight of that day in order to be able to override a veto. I've been told consistently by members of your leadership and lobbyists who have talked to members of your leadership that there's a deal to not override vetoes. Thus far, we have seen that in operation just by the absence of any veto override attempts. And so I've asked the speaker that in private on a couple of occasions and haven't gotten an answer one way or another, yes or no. I don't feel like I got a yes or no answer on Friday. And so our timeline, if we're just going to run the clock out on the ability to override, that's the reason I was trying to press that at the time, because we're not real keen on the LCF process overall in the Senate. And so just going to the LCF position is a gargantuan task within my caucus to be able to deliver on. And if I'm going to go to the mat to try to deliver on LCF projects, which have been the funding mechanism has been not received with as much enthusiasm as it has on your side, I was needing some assurance that we could carry through on the priorities of the Senate on that thing, on the rest of the budget. That's the reason that I pressed for the time on Friday.
We still don't have an agreement on a budget, a final budget for FY25. To me, I think we have to continue to work, and then when we get to a budget that everyone agrees upon, then I think that's the point. But the problem with the timeline's the timeline, and it's been said before, every year I brought that in, there's a history of when that started. I'll give a little bit of backstory about that. It was in the 56th and it was about 12:30 at night. We're waiting on a GA bill under Fallon's administration. And I watched my staff come in. He's no longer working for the House right now, but a veteran House member that worked 34 years for the House. The guy's tie was off. He was sweating. He didn't have a jacket on. He was red-faced and looked like he was about ready to have a heart attack any time. And that particular year, there were mistakes made on the GA bill. There was mistakes we had to correct the trailer bills following up. But after that, I literally went to him and was like, Mark, there's got to be a better way to do this. What is the timeline? What does staff need to put together quality work and have both chambers check it? It's just, to me, very simple and responsible. I was the vice chair at that time, but to me, there's a better way to do this process. And so with the timeline, I've always brought it out. It's always been kind of laughed off and pushed back by the Senate, but it's really for our staff, and it's for a quality product for the state of Oklahoma. And we work under those timelines. There's a reason there's a committee deadline in every chamber, a floor deadline in every chamber. Without deadlines, you would get nothing done. And yes, we're against the clock for Sine died May 31st, 5 o'clock. So that's the reason the timelines are important. Deadlines have to be met. I'm here to negotiate. I can't speak for the governor. I wouldn't attempt to, but I have asked House staff to reach out and ask if there's anything the governor would, agree to. I don't feel like that's really the position of the House to do it, but I want to get a budget. I'm here to get a budget done for FY25. So that's really where I'm at. I don't know what it's going to take for us to move forward, but I'm here with short notice to the media and everybody else for the budget summit.
Well, last year we came up with a creative solution on having a concurrent special session that was challenged in court by the governor and unanimously upheld by the Supreme Court on the legislature's side of the equation. Myself and the speaker both circulated petitions to be able to get 2/3 of the legislature to run concurrently so we could override that bill. The speaker and I both joined in defending that move and prevailed, like I said, unanimously in the Oklahoma Supreme Court. I know there was a question or two asked of that Friday after the meeting broke up, and at least the speaker at that didn't shut that possibility off. I will tell you that preliminarily, I've already asked my caucus if they would do that. I've got enough signatures to pull us into special concurrent. Haven't even had a chance to talk to the minority party on that yet, but we have more than enough sufficient signatures to pull ourselves into special so we can still preserve the legislative role in overriding any vetoes, and only would have to be here a day or so after regular session to do that, just like we did last year on the budget, on ARPA and the compacts. I saw the meeting that you and Chairman Howard co-chaired on the compact approvals. That would not have been possible had we not called ourselves into special last year and overrode gubernatorial vetoes. So would the House be prepared to pull yourselves into special with us? We have a call. Obviously, we haven't consulted with you all on the parameters of that call, but I'll tell you what the three things that we pushed to our caucus were. The budget, any budget related bills, the same two language, the same agreed upon language last year minus ARPA. Plus we had something specific for the Panhandle project on water and Guyman. Like I said, that garnered more than enough signatures today. Obviously we'd have to regather those signatures if we wanted to change anything in that call, but would you all, in order to try to get to an agreement on LCF, agree to get 2/3 of your body to sign us into a concurrent special so we could preserve legislative prerogative over the budget?
I believe that we'd have to continue to negotiate to actually get a budget agreement. I would entertain that request. I cannot speak for the speaker, but if we could get a budget deal cut out here, and I don't see why we couldn't get one tonight. We should have been able to get one a couple weeks back, or at least last Friday. But if we get a budget agreement that everybody agrees to, then I'm sure we can have that conversation.
I will tell you that anything that we would agree to from this side on anything beyond what we talked about Thursday would require an agreement to override, or at least make best faith effort to override all parts of the agreement on the budget.
That would be the same. And if we're going to go down that path, there's some requests from the House and membership that wasn't really on this last page. It would include Prep 2.0. Also our ask at LCF. You guys went backwards on your second counter offer. House's position was at 350 mil. There's another very detailed conversation to be had about deferred maintenance. We need to get these things worked out.
I agree, but the water, you all, your unwillingness to go to our number on the 125 on water is what eliminated prep. We had a conversation about and we could re-engage that conversation on the Guyman project of trying to make sure we get 20. And I know you wanted that to go through prep. We don't find that objectionable if we can come to some kind of agreement. So, but to relitigate the 125 and the 250, that's a $375 million swing in our cash position, and that would not be. That would go well beyond Thursday. That would go back to Wednesday or Tuesday of last week.
So do you want to present your counter to the counter, or where are we at?
I'm good with that, but I want you to know that as we go down this list, everything that we are talking about is still contingent on getting some kind of agreement with the House that you would be willing to override. And if we can't get that commitment, we need to stick at where we were before we talk about this counter to the counter, because this is all LCF projects and a little bit of OETA, and then what's the back page? Oh, the formula on deferred maintenance. So we can be happy to discuss our position on all of those, though. And I would let Senator Hall lead our conversation on that.
I do think it would be beneficial to have a conversation about each of the items that was on the proposal. We can come back and look at it from a House position and provide either a counter or things that we could or could not agree to. But I would really, as I mentioned on that second item, I think we need to have a conversation about the funds and just a clear understanding where the Senate position's at.
Before you go there, like I said, I'll have Senator Hall go through those line items. But is the speaker planning on showing up so we can get a yes or no on the agreement to try to override or come into special session?
I don't think that he's planning on attending this budget hearing today. You can give him a call or text, get an answer directly from him, but no, I do not believe he was planning on attending today.
Go ahead.
All right, so thank you, Mr. Chairman. When we, I know there was a lot of discussion about the deposit to LCF for $76,001,472 and how we arrived at that number. I think right towards the end of the conclusion of our meeting, you felt like that we were a little off on that. The discussion, I think, kind of centers around we're reflecting the interest payment, the interest received as part of what appeared to us to be, and I think is accurate, a BOE certification. We're also counting the recapitalization payments that could be to be expected to come in. So if we want to have a discussion about the balancing of that, and if you're concerned about how we handle the interest respectively in LCF, I think we're willing to have that discussion.
Yes, I do want to have that discussion. Also, I will note that the House was at $350 million for LCF in the very beginning. The Senate was at 0. The first offer that the Senate made to us in writing, you were at $125 million. We countered at 175, and then you come back at 76. So it looks like to me a moving of the goalpost, but in the opposite direction of a negotiation to the middle.
So I think that the pro tem in his opening comments was accurate. Whenever we were accounting for where you all came back with the OSU science building at $80 million, and then the DPS phase 2 facility at $74 million. And so it's been our position, and I think our caucus still believes that the utilization of the outstanding LCF funds makes sense. And if we were headed down the path of funding these LCF projects that were discussed on Friday, then we believe using the interest and recapitalization payments at the $76,001,472 would utilize all the outstanding LCF funds, along with being able to cover the additional projects that were proposed in your offer.
The fund interest rolling back into the fund, which I understand EOE certified, in the legislature's authorization for appropriations. that is probably another mistake that needs to be addressed by BOE. Those funds would be going back to general revenue, but I am for correcting that fund where the interest does stay in it. But if we're going to add additional items, I don't see that you lower your beginning position of the funds going into LCF. And as I've mentioned before, it had been a request of the House from day one, but I believe when the state gets in the position to have $1 billion out there in circulation for our funding of our self projects, payments rolling back on those over 20 years, 10, 15 years down the road, there'll be a legislature sitting in this room thanking us for our foresight, planning, and preparedness to help the state, not only in capital projects, but at some point picking up deferred maintenance. And deferred maintenance has not been something that has ever wanted to be addressed. And this year, there's a lot of conversation, a lot of talk. There's a need. But I think both funds could do the same thing. We still don't have negotiation agreement on OCAMP at this point either. So I understand your position now. House is not in a position to agree to that at this time.
Well, that's fine, but we still, we're okay with having a discussion about how we handle the interest prospectively. Want to remind you, as I know you're well aware, because the House created and advocated for the LCF program, that if we do these projects, we're talking about somewhere north of $34 million recapitalization dollars that be coming back into the program. And so there are dollars that are coming back in. Started with the 600 million, add another 76 million to it. Over time, all of that will be coming back in recapitalization. So again, we feel like the money's out there. We're fine with using the money that's out there. We're fine with adding to what it takes to be able to do the LCF projects that are proposed on your summary document.
Well, I would agree with you. The interest, or not the interest, but the payment replenishments, I think that's a great start to have 36 mil a year rolling back in. I'm looking forward to the day we've got 50 mil rolling back in. That'd be a corpus of $1 billion out. So then the next item that, and I fully understand wanting to pay cash on the bottom half of the 25
Right.
Out. One thing that we had made very clear in our counter back to you on the OETA transmitters, the 3 mil there, we had tied the 2 million for the water quality certification to that line item. You separated it again. I'd like to have a little conversation about that as well.
Yeah, we did. We just we are just not at the request for the water quality program at OSU. We're just not comfortable with exactly the overall purpose for that. We just simply are not there, and frankly, I think we would we're not interested in really in tying those together. We're just simply not there for the water quality piece. We do know that that under the proposed LCF projects and the single pay projects through whether the LCF and the bottom list.
Chairman Hall, can I interrupt for a moment? Really, without the speaker being able to come down from the fourth floor, I think we're at a place where we need to just negotiating out where we are here without any idea of whether or not the House is going to stand by what they're doing. I think it's probably much more beneficial to talk about where we were on Thursday night and decide if that's where we want to wrap it up for the year, or if we just need to schedule this meeting again when the speaker can come.
So it's come up a couple times. I just want to say, and the Senate, we're not going to tell you guys how to do your process, and we have our own. Our speaker has empowered our appropriations chairman to do his job.
So can you answer the veto override question?
I would happily get to that point if we ever get a budget.
I think all we're doing now is just running around in circles. So I think Thursday, at the end of the day, Thursday, and staff can help. I think where we were is LCF was at 0. We came to agreement on Friday on sheriffs, so the sheriff's part would be out. We came to an agreement on running Diamond through prep, so that was not part of where we were Thursday. I don't know what other items were missing.
4.2 assessment.
The 4.2 assessment on education. So I think the Senate's very comfortable calling that a good year. If you guys are ready to accept that deal, that's great. Otherwise, I think we're gonna need some surety on how we're moving forward here, and it sure doesn't feel like the people in this room right now can deliver that.
There's absolutely no doubt the people in this room on the House side can always deliver a negotiated budget and stand behind it. We've proved it year after year after year, and I will let you know this is my 8th year in the budget process. And I'm here negotiating in good faith. I've heard you loud and clear. I think probably at this point, we need to step back. We will reevaluate our position where it was at on Thursday as well. And if the Senate once again wants to pull stuff off and they agree to, which I find quite ironic at this point, because we did negotiate in public. Media saw all of it. They saw the Senate agree to these positions. And then now you can see my frustration year after year after year with deals being agreed to, pulled off the sheet the next day. But absolutely, if you want to go back to the Senate position of Thursday, then we will go back and I will take another look at the House's position, because as a negotiation, you were negotiation for the benefit of all Oklahomans. There are things that both the House and the Senate give and take on. And once a deal's made, it affects the next negotiation. As you give a little here to gain a little more of a chamber's priorities, once it's agreed to, it's set in stone. That's the way I operate, always have. And I get really aggravated having to renegotiate agreements. So at this point, I think it would be best that we pull back. We'll go back and review. And if you want to pick back up in the morning with a new budget start over point, then we can do that. But I think it'd be a great opportunity for the media to actually have a conversation about budget transparency, failed processes, and how we get our constitutional duty done. But I'm fine with rescheduling in the morning. We'll go back to Thursday's positions. House will take a look at our position and we'll move the goalposts once again.
I very much appreciate it. And if what you said about your word being your bond, then this should be really easy to have said yes on Friday. Should have been really easy to say yes today. We look forward to being able to come to that kind of clarity whenever you request us to come back and the speaker can join us.
Well, it's interesting to me, the chamber that does not deliver on the budget deals the last few years must have some notion that we're not negotiating in good faith because they do not negotiate in good faith.